Attorney General of the United States, Jeff Sessions. Attorney General Sessions, thanks for being with us on the Howie Carr Show.
Howie, it's good to be back with you.
Well, listen, first I want to ask you about a story in the Washington Post this afternoon or this morning saying that basically the Trump administration is no longer going to prosecute any border crossings. Is that correct or not?
No, that's not correct. We are, the president, I think, has made clear today that he wants us to prosecute people who come into the country unlawfully. If it's a first offense, it is a misdemeanor, and they're apprehended and taken to court usually within a week, and 99% of adults are pleading guilty, and they are, if they make a claim of asylum, they'll get an asylum hearing, and if they don't, they'll be deported for time served. It's not but you have to have discipline. You cannot... If you want to end illegal immigration, and the president does, you do need to prosecute the cases that you're able to prosecute. We may not be able to do every one because of the large numbers. You have to use our judgment, but our goal is to prosecute everybody that enters unlawfully. And then if the number that does bring children, which is far less than majority, those children are going to be treated carefully, and we're going to hold them every way possible with those children when they go to court and return back to them, the children.
Now, as you know, Attorney General Sessions, the asylum hearings were a big racket during the Obama administration. They would set hearings for like a year and a half later, and they would let them go, and then they would never show up for their hearings. How are you going to avoid just continuing what amounts to a catch and release program under the Obama administration with these asylum hearings?
That's exactly what tends to be happening, and because of the stress on the system and the more and more people claiming asylum. It's been very, very difficult to catch up. We're adding another 100 judges to try these cases between now and the end of the year, but we're not able to get there where we need to be.
Are you going to hold them though? Are you going to hold them until their asylum hearings? Because if you let them
we're
go,
not able. We're not able to. They're not being large numbers of them are not being detained pending their asylum hearing because we have no place to put them.
In reality, then, I mean, you can talk tough, but if you're letting them go, they're never going to come back, right?
Well, we're working on that in every way possible. We've more than doubled the number of people that are prosecuted. We think we will be doubling this year over last year, and that was up. And we're going to continue to add pressure to it, but we need help from Congress. It's just that simple. This is we can close a lot of the loopholes. We can set up a situation where we can move better. But the American people do need to know that this president is committed and driven and driving to make sure that we do everything possible to end this illegality, and I support that 100%.
Isn't the problem that these asylum laws are being abused, and that you've got to have Congress tighten the loopholes? Isn't that what you've been talking about these last few days, you and the president?
Yes, that is exactly right. Look, asylum, and I've issued, using the authority I have as Attorney General, a clarification of the law that's fully consistent with the actual law of the United States, which says that your asylum is to be based on situations like people fleeing Russia or Jews fleeing the Nazis or where your religion is under attack or some group of people are under attack. That's what we give asylum for, not because you may have been a victim of a robbery or domestic violence. An incident of that does not create the ability to have asylum in the United States. It just can't be, obviously, because you have millions of people that would qualify.
But the Democrats don't.
People who do qualify, we want to make sure that people who do qualify have a right to have their case. But you are correct. People are. This is everybody is claiming asylum and demanding trials, and under the rules, too often they are entitled to that, and it's backed up the whole system.
The president said today basically that nothing's going to get done unless they either do away with the filibuster rules in the Senate or they get 60 Republicans to push through these kinds of reforms. I mean, is that the way is nothing going to happen until either the filibusters are abolished or 60 Republicans are elected?
Well, it does appear at this point that the Democratic leadership is determined not to have any votes from the Democrats support legislative fixes for some of these problems. And so I think the president was saying what appears to be the political reality, that it's going to take some changes somewhere in the system. I'm not one to give up on that. I think that the presidents are correct to ask for this: a lawful system of immigration that serves the American people's interest, one that we can be proud of, one that's fair, but one that's not subject to loopholes or manipulation and false claims of asylum or other claims that are not justified. We are, in fact, seeing way too much of that.
What percentage of asylum claims do you think are fraudulent?
Well, let me say it this way. People make an asylum claim. They're given an initial interview by the Department of Homeland Security. 15% of those are denied as being baseless pretty much at the beginning. Of the 85% that are tried, 80% of them are found to be not justified. And some of that's fraudulent.
So I can't. I don't.
Yeah,
that's too
Totally
complicated.
unjustified.
That math is too complicated for me. But I'm going to say that's over three-quarters are fake. Is that right?
It's over 80%. It's about 85% of being when they get a hearing and being able to state their claim are being rejected. And most of the judges that are hearing that been on the bench before this administration took office. So they're getting a fair hearing, but their claims just aren't justified. And they aren't winning because they're not justified.
Attorney General
But
Sessions.
it backs up the system, just like you say, and then you have to give them a chance to present their case, and the law is so broad that it's a problematic thing. It needs to be fixed.
I want to ask you a little bit about the IG's report and that missing text. Where they say no, Strzok says no, we'll stop him. Are you satisfied with the FBI's explanation that they couldn't find that for all those months?
The Inspector General is the one that used multiple different efforts to recover more and more of those emails. He testified about that. I think it'd be best for me to let the Inspector General's testimony stand. He also said, told the Congress that if that he would issue a report on those emails. So I think that the thing about his reports as opposed to a normal investigations don't get made public, whereas the Inspector General makes his reports public. And I think that will be healthy to have that made public and that investigation completed.
Is Strzok still on the payroll of the FBI?
Mr. Strzok has, as I understand, has lost his security clearance. That's a matter decided with the FBI. And he has some personnel who are subject to discipline have certain rights, and I suppose...
He's still on the payroll then?
Yeah, that's my understanding.
Now the IG said that he had determined that 50 FBI agents were accepting illegal gratuities, also known as bribes. Are they going to be fired or disciplined or prosecuted? I mean, we've had a big problem in the FBI office with FBI agents here accepting bribes from gangsters. But I mean, a bribe from a journalist, a bribe from a gangster, it's still a bribe, isn't it?
Well, I'll let FBI Director Wray respond to those individual matters. I would just say this. We've got a new FBI director. I recommended Mr. Comey be terminated, and the president terminated him. I fired the deputy director, Mr. McKay. They now have a new deputy director, a new chief of staff, a new legal counsel, a new communications director, and I think we're on path to get some new blood at the top of the FBI. But I got to tell you, please don't suggest that the fabulous FBI agents that are all over this country, talented, smart, patriotic, I know them, are taking bribes in large numbers. I think that's really an unfair statement.
But isn't that what he said?
I really have to push back a little bit there.
Isn't that what he said, though? He said they're taking illegal gratuities, right? Didn't he?
I'll let his testimony speak for itself.
Comey and McCabe are telling different stories about the leaks to the Wall Street Journal under oath, I guess, both of them. Which one do you believe?
Well, the process is Mr. Strzok is going to be testifying, and Mr. McCabe is claiming the fifth, I understand. So we'll just have to see how all that plays out.
And you're happy though with Christopher Wray as the FBI director.
I think he's determined to do the right thing. He's made major changes and continuing to make changes, and I think it's important that he do so. Not be defensive, as I've told him. Don't be defensive about this, Mr. Director. You're in charge. You need to examine these matters carefully, and if people need discipline, they need discipline. They need to be terminated. They need to be terminated. They need to be prosecuted. They need to be prosecuted. And basically, he said that in his testimony a few days ago.
Attorney General Jeff Sessions, thank you very much for being with us here on the Howie Carr Show.
Howie, good to be with you.
Thank you. I'm Howie Carr.